Chosen one, you are not here by chance, and this moment is not random. Heaven has arranged this encounter with precision, and your spirit was guided here by perfect timing. Before you pressed play, a door was already opening, and what you are about to hear is not for everyone, but for the one who has been set apart to receive it. Chosen one, you are standing at the edge of a shift that alters direction, not gradually, but suddenly. There is a moment when preparation meets permission, when discipline meets favor, and when obedience meets release.
For behold,
This
I bring
is
you
that
good
moment.
tidings of great joy,
Anointed one,
which shall be
what
to
has
all
felt delayed
people.
was not denied, it was being aligned. Wealth, clarity, and authority do not arrive through chaos. They respond to order, and heaven is teaching you how to establish it. Chosen one, Scripture reminds us that there is a time for every purpose under heaven, and this is a time of awakening. Not an awakening of noise, but of command. Not of striving, but of alignment. What you do before the world speaks to you determines what the world can take from you. Anointed one, God does not always remind through thunder or explanation. Sometimes the most powerful confirmations are quiet, simple, and steady, meant to be returned to when strength feels thin. What has been prepared waits calmly, resting just below, exactly as it was meant to be. Chosen one, let me speak plainly and with weight, because what you are hearing now is not motivational language, it is a summons. There is a sacred window that opens each morning before the noise claims you, and heaven watches closely to see who understands its power. This is not about productivity, this is about authority. Before the world speaks over you, before demands pull at your identity, before fear, comparison, or urgency try to crown themselves as your master, there is a moment where your spirit is still unmarked. That moment is not accidental, it is given. Anointed one, when you wake up, your mind has not yet been drafted into battles that are not yours. You have not yet agreed with the lies of lack, pressure, or delay. You have not yet been told who you are by headlines, messages, or other people's emergencies. Heaven has given you a narrow gate in time where alignment is decided, and in that gate you either take command or you are commanded. Most people never realize this. They wake up and surrender without knowing they surrendered. They reach for a screen before they reach for clarity. They allow other voices to name their day, shape their mood, and dictate their pace. By the time the sun rises, their thoughts are no longer their own. Their inner world has already been occupied, and they wonder why progress feels heavy, why wealth feels distant, why life feels like constant reaction instead of creation. Chosen one, that is not your path. You were not designed to wake up behind life. You were designed to lead it. There are people who treat the morning like a battlefield, but the rare ones, the set-apart ones, treat it like an altar. They understand that destiny does not begin on stages or in meetings. It begins in silence, behind closed doors, when no one is watching but heaven. It begins in thought before action, in alignment before movement. I learned this the hard way. There was a season when I was busy but not advancing, faithful but frustrated, working hard yet always feeling one step behind. Nothing was wrong on the surface, but something was off at the root, and what I did not realize then was that I was letting the world speak first every day. I was productive, but I was not positioned, and heaven cannot multiply what is not first aligned. Chosen one, there is ancient wisdom that has been preserved for generations because it works, not because it is mystical, but because it is ordered. Heaven responds to order. Blessing flows where structure exists. Confusion blocks what faith invites. And what I am about to unfold for you is not theory, it is practice. It is a pattern that shapes identity before it produces results. The morning is sacred because your spirit is most impressionable there. Not weak, impressionable, open, moldable, uncontested. In that space, whatever you allow to speak gains influence.
If the world speaks first, it writes the script. If you speak first, you set the tone. This is why Scripture reminds us to be still and know. Stillness is not passivity, it is recognition. It is where you remember who you are before life tries to rename you. Anointed one, silence is the first act of authority. Not empty silence, but chosen stillness. 5 minutes where you do not perform, fix, or plan. You simply sit before God without agenda. This is where clarity begins to rise. I have watched fear lose its grip in silence. I have watched anxiety dissolve, not because it was fought, but because it was not fed. In stillness, your nervous system calms, but more than that, your spirit realigns. You remember that you are not behind, you are not late, you are positioned. Then comes speech. Not casual words, but declarations. Words spoken with agreement, not desperation. You are made in the image of a God who creates with words, and your language shapes your inner world long before it shapes your outer one. When you speak in the morning, you are not trying to convince heaven. You are aligning yourself with truth. You are telling your soul who is in charge. Chosen one, when you declare that you are blessed, that you are a vessel, that abundance flows through you for purpose, something shifts internally. This is not pretending, this is training. Identity is formed by repetition. Whatever you say consistently, you eventually believe. Whatever you believe, you eventually live.
Behold,
I have seen people work harder and harder with no change because they never addressed identity. Wealth does not respond to effort alone, it responds to alignment. After silence and declaration, you write. Ink forces clarity. Thoughts that stay in the mind remain chaotic. Thoughts that hit paper become ordered. When you write goals, gratitude, and insight, you are not journaling for emotion. You are giving vision a body. Scripture reminds us that where there is no vision, people drift. Writing stops the drift. It anchors intention. Chosen one, this is where many turn back. Because this practice requires consistency, not intensity. It asks you to show up before results show up. But this is exactly where momentum is born. Day by day, alignment compounds. Identity stabilizes. Decisions sharpen. And before you realize it, life begins to respond differently to you. This is not magic. This is mastery. And in the next part, I will take you deeper into how this alignment begins to unlock clarity, motion, and the kind of momentum that changes financial seasons and spiritual authority together. Chosen one. Now let me take you deeper, because silence and declaration are only the gate. What happens next is where alignment begins to turn into clarity, and clarity begins to change outcomes. After stillness and speech, heaven invites you into something very practical, yet deeply spiritual. This is where many people think the process becomes ordinary, but in truth, this is where order is established. Anointed one, writing is not a habit, it is a form of dominion. When you put pen to paper in the morning, you are not just organizing thoughts, you are choosing direction. Your mind, when left alone, does not move toward clarity, it moves toward noise. It floods you with unfinished conversations, old fears, random ideas, and unnecessary urgency. Writing interrupts that flood. It forces the chaos to slow down and line up. I remember mornings when my head felt heavy before the day even started. Nothing had happened yet, but I already felt behind. When I began writing, something shifted.
Problems that felt overwhelming suddenly had edges. Goals that felt vague became reachable. And gratitude, when written, stopped being abstract and started feeling real. This is not coincidence. Vision becomes real when it is named. Chosen one. Scripture teaches that where there is no vision, people wander. Wandering is expensive. It costs time, energy, and momentum. Writing stops wandering. When you write your goals, even simple ones, you are telling your spirit where to aim. When you write gratitude, you are reminding your nervous system that you are not starting from lack. And when you write insight, you are honoring the lessons God is already teaching you instead of rushing past them. This is why heaven often speaks in whispers, not because the message is weak, but because the listener must slow down to receive it. Writing slows you down enough to hear. It grounds the prophetic in the practical. And over time, you begin to notice that decisions come easier, distractions lose power, and focus sharpens. Then comes intake. What you allow into your mind in the first hour of the day sets the ceiling for your thinking. Most people feed their mind noise and wonder why their decisions feel unstable. Anointed one, you were never meant to start your day consuming chaos. You were meant to start it consuming wisdom. Reading something elevating is not about information, it is about calibration. When you read words that carry truth, depth, and perspective, your inner world adjusts.
For behold,
Scripture reminds us to guard the heart because it directs the course of life. Your heart, your mind, is guarded by what you feed it. 5 minutes of wisdom can neutralize hours of distraction. I have watched people change simply by changing what they read first. Anxiety softened, creativity returned, confidence stabilized. Not because life became easier, but because their inner compass was stronger. Chosen one, you cannot pour from a mind that is empty or polluted. What you take in determines what you can release. This is where many begin to feel the shift. Not dramatic yet, but noticeable. Days feel less reactive. Decisions feel cleaner. There is a sense of being led instead of pushed. This is alignment taking root. And once alignment takes root, momentum is not far behind. In the next part, I will show you how movement and gratitude seal this alignment and turn it into forward motion that affects not just your spirit, but your finances, your confidence, and your authority in the world. Chosen one. Alignment that stays internal will eventually fade. Heaven never intended clarity to remain theoretical. It was always meant to move through the body. This is why movement is not optional, it is prophetic in nature. When you move your body intentionally in the morning, you are signaling readiness. You are telling your system that the day will not control you. You will meet it standing. Anointed one, the body remembers what the mind forgets. When your posture is collapsed, your thoughts follow. When your body is energized, your confidence rises with it. This is not just psychology, this is design. Motion awakens courage. Even simple movement breaks stagnation, and stagnation is the enemy of increase. I have seen seasons where nothing changed externally until movement returned internally. A walk in the morning, stretching, breathing with intention. Suddenly, ideas flowed again. Conversations shifted. Opportunities appeared. Not because movement caused wealth directly, but because it restored momentum. Wealth moves toward motion, not hesitation. After movement comes gratitude, and this is where the practice is sealed. Gratitude is not politeness, it is power. When you thank God before you see results, you are declaring trust. Scripture teaches us to give thanks in all circumstances, not because everything feels good, but because gratitude shifts focus, and focus determines experience. Chosen one, when you begin your day grateful, you are no longer negotiating with lack. You are standing in agreement with provision. Gratitude tells your spirit that you are supported. It quiets fear. It stabilizes emotion. It reminds you that you are not building from emptiness, but from overflow. I have watched gratitude change entire seasons. Not overnight, but consistently. People who felt trapped began to see options. People who felt unseen began to recognize favor. Gratitude did not remove challenges, but it removed their control. This is why the practice works. Not because it is mystical, but because it reshapes identity, clarity, and momentum. Identity answers who you are. Clarity answers where you are going. Momentum answers how you get there. When these three align, life responds. Chosen one, wealth is not just money. It is stability, confidence, influence, and peace. And peace attracts opportunity. Over time, you become someone who carries weight without striving. Decisions compound, discipline multiplies, and heaven begins to trust you with more. This is not about perfection, it is about consistency. Small acts done daily become structures that support large outcomes. 30 minutes that shape the other hours, a morning that sets the tone for seasons. In the next part, I will take you into how this consistency creates visible change, how resistance shows up, and why those first 30 days often determine the next several years of your life. Chosen one. There comes a point where the fire quiets, not because the promise has faded, but because endurance has taken its place. This is the stretch that is rarely spoken about, not the beginning where everything feels charged, and not the fulfillment where everything makes sense, but the middle, the long middle. The days where you wake up faithful but tired, consistent but unseen, steady but still waiting. Anointed one, this is where many misinterpret heaven's silence as absence. But silence is not neglect, it is space. Space for roots to grow where applause cannot reach. Space for identity to settle without being propped up by emotion. I have learned that God often removes the rush, not to slow you down, but to stabilize you. What is built too fast cannot carry weight for long. There were mornings when nothing felt dramatic, no surge of excitement, no sudden clarity, just the discipline of returning, sitting in the same place, writing the same lines, moving the same body, whispering the same gratitude. And I remember thinking, is this still working? That question is familiar to every chosen one who has stayed longer than the thrill. What I learned is this: faith matures when it no longer needs to be convinced every day. The strongest seasons are not the ones filled with signs, but the ones marked by quiet agreement. You keep showing up not because you feel inspired, but because you are aligned. And alignment does not always feel loud. Often it feels ordinary. Chosen one, endurance is not glamorous. It looks like choosing the practice when yesterday did not pay off yet. It looks like gratitude spoken through clenched teeth. It looks like moving your body when motivation did not arrive. It looks like trusting that repetition is doing something unseen. This is where most promises are lost, not because God withdrew, but because people grew impatient with process. Scripture reminds us that vision waits for its appointed time. Waiting is not wasted time. Waiting is where capacity is formed. Heaven does not release increase into a life that has not learned to hold it steadily. Sudden elevation without endurance collapses quickly. But endurance builds a container that does not crack under blessing. Anointed one, there were days when the only victory was that I did not quit. No breakthrough, no confirmation, just faithfulness. And looking back, those were the days that shaped everything. Not the days of excitement, but the days of return. Return to stillness, return to clarity, return to gratitude, return to movement, return to truth when doubt tried to negotiate. This is why consistency matters more than emotion. Emotion rises and falls. Consistency carries you through. The promise does not need your excitement to mature. It needs your agreement. Agreement looks like showing up even when nothing new happens. Agreement looks like honoring the process when results lag behind effort. Chosen one, I have noticed that faith is often steadied not by constant explanation or dramatic signs, but by simple, repeatable reminders that anchor the spirit when feelings fluctuate. There is a quiet reminder placed gently below, in the description or the pinned comment, meant to be returned to when the day feels heavy, and then we keep moving forward. Anointed one, the waiting season tests something deeper than belief. It tests trust. Trust that what is growing cannot yet be seen. Trust that alignment precedes manifestation. Trust that heaven is not late. The fatigue you feel is not a sign you are failing. It is a sign you have been carrying weight. And strength is built by carrying, not escaping.
For behold,
there will be mornings where the
tidings
practice
of great
feels
joy,
mechanical.
which shall be
Do not be afraid of that. Even rituals in Scripture were repeated daily, not because God forgot, but because people needed structure. Repetition builds reverence. It teaches the soul where to return when everything else feels unstable. Chosen one, endurance refines motives. When excitement fades, what remains is intention. Why are you still doing this? Not for applause, not for instant reward, but because you know who you are becoming. Because you know what kind of life this alignment produces. Because you know that consistency is shaping a future version of you that can steward what is coming. I want you to hear this clearly. Nothing you are doing is wasted. No morning has been ignored. No quiet obedience has gone unseen. Heaven records faithfulness differently than people do. What feels small to you is significant in the unseen. What feels repetitive is reinforcing identity. What feels slow is stabilizing momentum. Anointed one, there is a reason the promise did not arrive at the height of your excitement. It is being released at the depth of your steadiness. You are learning to stand without leaning on emotion, to trust without constant reassurance, to move forward without needing to be pushed. This is how capacity is built. This is how authority matures. This is how wealth, influence, and peace arrive without destroying the vessel that receives them. You are not being delayed. You are being strengthened. Stay here. Stay faithful. Stay aligned. The quiet season is doing more than you think. Chosen one. There is a moment when endurance begins to turn into discernment. You start to notice that not every opportunity deserves your energy, and not every voice deserves your attention. This is a quiet upgrade. Heaven does not always announce promotions. Sometimes it simply sharpens your sight. What once distracted you now feels heavy. What once impressed you now feels hollow. This is not arrogance. This is maturity. Anointed one, as consistency settles in, discernment awakens. You begin to feel when something is rushed instead of aligned. You sense when a door is open but not assigned to you. In earlier seasons, you may have chased movement because movement felt like progress. Now you understand that speed without direction only leads back to exhaustion. Heaven is teaching you restraint, because restraint protects what is coming. I remember times when invitations appeared that looked like answers to prayer. They promised faster results, louder recognition, or easier money. And in earlier versions of myself, I might have said yes. But something had changed.
Fear not.
The morning alignment had trained my spirit to pause, to ask, not is this available, but is this aligned? That pause saved me from decisions that would have cost far more than they paid. Chosen one, wealth does not just test what you can build, it tests what you can refuse. The ability to say no is often the clearest sign that authority has matured. When your identity is stable, you no longer need every opportunity to validate you. You trust that what is truly yours will not require you to compromise your center. This is where many feel tension. Old habits want to reassert control. The urge to prove yourself resurfaces. Comparison whispers that others are moving faster, but discernment answers with peace. Peace that does not need to compete, peace that does not rush, peace that knows timing is protection. Anointed one, discernment grows strongest in ordinary days, days without drama, days where you simply do the practice, go to work, handle responsibilities, and return home. These are the days where judgment is refined, where your nervous system learns the difference between urgency and importance, where your spirit learns to wait without anxiety. I have watched people lose years by mistaking urgency for calling. They ran because they were afraid of being left behind. But nothing meant for you can miss you. What is delayed is not denied when heaven is involved. Discernment teaches you to stand still when standing still is the wiser move. Chosen one, this is also where boundaries become clearer. Not harsh boundaries, but honest ones. You stop over-explaining. You stop rescuing people from lessons they need to learn. You stop carrying responsibility that was never assigned to you. This is not selfishness. This is stewardship. You are learning to steward your time, your energy, and your focus. As discernment grows, so does peace. And peace is not passive. Peace is power under control. It allows you to move decisively without being reactive. It allows you to wait without resentment. It allows you to work without striving. This is the inner environment where sustainable wealth is formed. Anointed one, heaven often entrusts resources to those who are no longer desperate for them. Desperation distorts judgment. Calmness clarifies it. When you can remain steady regardless of external pressure, you become someone who can be trusted with increase. You may notice fewer emotional highs. That is not loss. That is grounding. Your faith is no longer fueled by adrenaline. It is fueled by conviction. Conviction lasts longer. Conviction carries weight. Conviction does not collapse under pressure. Stay here. Let discernment finish its work. You are being trained not just to receive, but to govern what you receive. And governance requires vision, patience, and restraint working together. Chosen one. Now something subtle begins to happen. The world starts responding differently to you, even if it cannot explain why. Conversations shift, doors open without force, resistance softens. This is not coincidence. Alignment changes your presence before it changes your circumstances. You carry yourself differently because you know something others do not see yet. Anointed one, this is where faith becomes embodied. Not spoken, not announced, but lived. You are no longer trying to convince anyone of what you believe. Your steadiness speaks for you. Your calm under pressure speaks for you. Your consistency speaks for you. People sense reliability before they see results. I have seen this moment many times. The season when nothing has visibly changed yet, but everything internally has stabilized. And then, without warning, the external begins to catch up. A conversation turns favorable. A problem resolves faster than expected. An opportunity appears that fits instead of drains. These are not rewards, they are responses. Chosen one, heaven responds to readiness. Readiness is not excitement, it is capacity. Can you carry what you are asking for without losing yourself? Can you receive without rushing to prove? Can you steward without fear? This is what has been forming quietly. You may still have days where fatigue whispers that progress is slow, but look closely. You are not who you were. Your reactions have changed. Your focus has sharpened. Your boundaries are clearer. Your mornings are anchored. These are not small shifts. These are foundational. Anointed one,
Fear not,
wealth transfer is not just financial. It is a transfer of responsibility, clarity, and authority. Money follows structure. Influence follows trust. Trust follows consistency. You are standing in the chain now. Nothing dramatic needs to happen today for everything to be in motion. I remember the first time I realized I was no longer anxious about outcomes. I still cared, but I was not controlled by the result. That was the moment I knew something had shifted. Peace had replaced pressure. And peace attracts provision because it creates space. Chosen one, space is important. Space allows creativity to return. It allows strategy to form. It allows wisdom to surface. When your mind is no longer crowded by fear, it becomes available for insight, and insight multiplies resources faster than effort ever could. This is why the process matters, why mornings matter, why consistency matters. You are not just preparing for money, you are preparing for decisions that affect others, for influence that requires restraint, for visibility that demands humility, for options that require wisdom. Anointed one, the waiting has not weakened you, it has refined you. The repetition has not bored heaven, it has proven reliability. The quiet has not stalled the promise, it has protected it. You are not late, you are aligned. Hold steady. Do not rush the final stretch. Let what has been built carry you forward. The shift does not announce itself loudly. It arrives naturally because everything is already in place. Stay present, stay faithful. What is unfolding will not require striving. It will require discernment, humility, and the same consistency that brought you here. Chosen one. There is a final inner crossing that happens before the outer shift becomes undeniable. It is the moment when you stop measuring progress by visible signs and start trusting the internal alignment without negotiation. This is where faith becomes quiet confidence, not optimism, not denial. Confidence rooted in knowing that what has been prepared cannot be undone by delay. Anointed one, this is the season where pressure tests your center. Not dramatic pressure, but subtle pressure. The kind that whispers, "You have been consistent long enough. Surely something should have happened by now." That whisper is not an enemy, it is a threshold. And thresholds reveal whether faith has matured or merely endured. I have learned that right before release, the temptation to interfere increases, to tweak the process, to speed things up, to take shortcuts that look harmless. But shortcuts always cost authority. What you bypass in formation, you pay for in maintenance later. Heaven is not withholding. Heaven is watching how you carry what has already been entrusted. Chosen one, this is where surrender deepens. Not surrender that gives up, but surrender that lets go of control. You continue the practice, but without bargaining, without timelines attached, without emotional ultimatums. This is where faith becomes clean, no longer asking, "If I do this, will I get that?" but simply remaining aligned because alignment itself has become home. There were moments when I realized I was no longer checking for signs, no longer scanning for confirmation. I still expected, but I was not anxious. That was new. And that was when things quietly began to move, not explosively, naturally. Conversations aligned, decisions landed with clarity, resistance softened without effort. Anointed One, the absence of panic is a sign of readiness. When you can hold expectation without tension, you are prepared to steward increase. Many people receive opportunity and immediately rush to secure it. But rushing reveals fear. Calm reveals trust. Trust attracts stability. Stability attracts resources. You may notice that your prayers have changed. Less explaining, less persuading, more presence, more listening. That is not weakness. That is intimacy. When trust deepens, words become fewer and alignment becomes stronger. You are learning to walk with God, not just ask from Him. Chosen One, this is also where patience becomes protection. Not passive patience, but anchored patience. The kind that does not chase what is not aligned. The kind that does not envy other timelines. The kind that knows that comparison is the fastest way to abandon your own assignment. I have watched people step out too early because they mistook restlessness for instruction. They moved because they were uncomfortable, not because they were led. And what followed was exhaustion disguised as opportunity. Discernment teaches you to recognize the difference. Anointed One, if you feel quieter lately, that is not loss of passion. That is focus. Fire that has learned to burn steadily instead of flaring. Steady fire cooks, wildfire consumes. Heaven trusts steady fire. You are not waiting for permission anymore. You are waiting for precision. Precision requires stillness. It requires patience. It requires the kind of listening that only forms in seasons where nothing is forcing you to move. Stay here. Do not rush this threshold. What crosses next does not need to be chased. It will arrive because everything in you is ready to receive without distortion. Chosen One. Now you are standing in the place where movement returns, but it is different than before. This movement is not fueled by urgency, it is guided by clarity. You do not step because you are afraid of missing something. You step because alignment has made the next move obvious. Anointed One, this is how heaven-backed shifts happen, quietly at first, then unmistakably. You will notice that effort feels lighter, that decisions no longer drain you, that doors open without you forcing them. This is not because life has become easy, it is because resistance has lost its leverage. I remember the first time I realized I was no longer negotiating with fear. Fear still appeared, but it no longer had authority. It could speak, but it could not steer. That was the sign. Authority had shifted internally, and when authority shifts internally, the external follows. Chosen One, the practice did not just shape mornings, it reshaped identity. You became someone who starts aligned and moves from center. That alone changes everything. People respond differently to those who are not seeking validation. Opportunities align with those who are not desperate for them. This is where provision often arrives in unexpected ways. Not always dramatic, sometimes practical, sometimes relational, sometimes through clarity that saves you money, time, or energy before it ever multiplies income. Provision is not only addition, it is protection from unnecessary loss. Anointed One, you may look back and realize that what felt like delay actually removed distractions, that what felt like repetition actually built discernment, that what felt like quiet actually trained authority. This is the wisdom that cannot be rushed. You are now equipped to receive without being consumed, to build without burning out, to increase without losing yourself. This is the true wealth shift. Money follows this. Influence follows this. Stability follows this. Chosen One, when movement resumes, stay anchored. Do not abandon the very practices that carried you here. Momentum does not replace alignment.
Fear not,
Alignment
for
sustains
behold,
momentum.
I bring you good
Continue
tidings of
returning,
great joy,
continue
which shall be
grounding,
to all
continue
people.
listening. What comes next will not require striving, it will require stewardship. And stewardship begins with the same faithfulness that sustained you when no one was watching. You have not been preparing for a moment, you have been preparing for a life. And now that life begins to unfold in ways that feel earned, not forced. Stand steady, walk forward. What is aligned will meet you, chosen one. As this moment closes, receive this with reverence. What has been spoken is already at work. Heaven does not rush, and it does not forget. You are standing in your Kairos moment, the exact window where obedience meets timing and alignment meets release. What has been forming quietly is now authorized to move. A supernatural transfer is already in motion, not only in provision, but in clarity, confidence, and authority. Anointed one, remain faithful to what has been entrusted to you. Do not underestimate the power of returning, the strength of consistency, or the weight of quiet obedience. What you honor daily, heaven multiplies seasonally. Look ahead not with urgency, but with gratitude, knowing that what is meant for you is already responding to who you have become. If this word settled in your spirit, you are welcome to leave a simple witness in the comments, to stay connected to what is unfolding here, or to share this moment with another who is walking a similar path. Let it be done with intention, not obligation. There is also a quiet reminder prepared in the pinned comment and the description, meant to steady the heart in moments when strength needs simplicity. Go forward, covered, grounded, and aligned. May peace guard you, wisdom guide you, and favor meet you where you stand.